Good morning and welcome to today's webinar on Autodesk InfraWorks. Leo Levian from Advanced Solutions. Is that correct, Leo?
That is correct.
We'll be doing today's webinar.
All right, welcome to everyone here. I have a really brief PowerPoint here. It's just talking about InfraWorks in general, showing these core features that the software has and what it's all about. I would like to welcome everyone here. And I am hardwired onto my network here. I'm not running on the wireless, so it should be fairly quick. But as always, tends to be a delay on what you see and what I see. But go ahead and get started here. We'll be looking at what InfraWorks can do for us and how we can really quickly create existing condition models. From that, we will then have the ability of adding to those models from various sources. And the idea is to tell a story. Whether it's a what-if scenario, a proposal, or even showing our design in context. And we'll be able to see how the software does that for us and the abilities that we have to jump back and forth from Civil 3D. The really amazing part is working with Model Builder. Before I worked with Model Builder, there's been several iterations to InfraWorks. It would take me a day just to gather existing condition data. And now in a matter of minutes, I can have that information pretty quickly shown off to me here. And I have at least this existing condition that is of course free pop in for me really quickly. It's a matter of highlighting the data and downloading the particular model, and I can start engaging that particular model and sketching in my proposed designs inside of here, or even bringing in whatever civil designs I may have already created to show that in context. So quite literally in minutes, I'm able to hit the ground running here with trying to show off of what's called a proposal. We can play with a lot of data. InfraWorks is very open on what type of information you can receive. So if it came from any Autodesk product, we're going to be able to use it. By that matter, all the other resources that are available out there, mainly GIS being the main type of data that's available out there. And this particular screenshot is actually old. This particular screenshot shows shape as being the source for us. And the latest release of 2019, we're actually able to tap directly into Esri databases. And I'll just show that off when we get into the software itself. We're able to tell a great story with InfraWorks. It's just really quickly add in our models and really using out-of-the-box styles, as they're referred to show off our models. And from those styles, build up and create our own. More specifically, when it has to do roadway, those have been changed throughout the years. It's not only just a style, but the fact that we can use very similar to what Civil 3D has our assemblies, showing off various proposals by simply switching a style instead of having to go in there and change components. Or we can also change components from within Civil 3D, very much like Civil 3D, to create the particular cross section in the specific idea of roadway. Because we are geo-referenced and tied to Earth here, we'll be able to create cloud coverage, sun, day, time of the day of the year, to be able to create that realistic point of view. And as we create our then fly-throughs, which are really easy to create, unlike AutoCAD, we just create a couple snapshots and the software will stitch those together for us. Depending on the type of data that you have created or tied to, we'll be able to get feedback. Whether it's GIS type of data and relying information on the background there for whatever data might be in the background as year, date, material, value, we'll be able to run analyses on those. Or if it's design that we've put in place ourselves to be able to look at what quantities are possibly taking in place, or just a matter of just running a measurement from point to point to be able to see information dynamically on screen here. The way we share data has changed. The data is now published differently with BIM 360. The way that works is via this cloud service we'll be able to create. So this is one of the questions of whether or not you have that Autodesk 360 account. We are able to share bookmarks of the model. It doesn't have to be via the BIM 360. So there's just different ways of being able to share that. So we can not only share the actual model, but share in a browser view with anyone. InfraWorks ties directly into Civil 3D. Civil 3D takes a model and reads it and is able to bring it directly inside of Civil 3D, which is pretty neat what we can do there. Or by that matter, any other softwares. For this example is Revit, being able to bring in this particular case, bridge models directly into Revit to take a look at them. So the way that it's able to talk to other Autodesk products is really great. Although I don't have Revit or not Revit user, I'm specifically a Civil user myself. That's really the gist of InfraWorks, being able to create models. It's very model oriented, and that's what we're going to be looking at here. So I'm just going to go ahead and get started here and bring this down. And what I'm going to start here is with InfraWorks itself. And you can see several models that I've created here from the past. And it just depends what your sources are. And just as an example here, I have this I have several models that I brought into place here. And what I usually start with here is what's referred to as a model builder, which allows me to just type in an address or a location, and I accidentally picked on a model to open. So it's gonna not only open a model, but update it here. I'm gonna have to give it a minute now. I clicked on older model, and that's why we see that icon on the screen as InfraWorks is consistently being updated. This particular release is the 2019, more specifically the 2019.2, and there I took my model and updated it. As an example, what I want to show you here, this is working with the city or the town of Fayetteville. We're just trying to show off a story inside of here. So that's what InfraWorks allows us to do, is put models together, and all we did there is drop some parcels. I dropped some vehicles that came in inside of the software, and put in a pipe network. And what I'm able to do here is tell that story. Along with that, I brought in the building footprints, all available from GIS data from the town itself, to ultimately tell a story here. And now, hopefully, if I hit play here, I know over the web it tends to be kind of choppy. On my end, it's pretty darn smooth, and that's going to happen as well when I show you the flyby that I can create from the Florida model that I have readily available. But this should be really, really smooth as I'm creating this flyby here, showing where we're at. And this is really an old model that I created several years back, working with a municipality here in North Carolina. It's neat how we can tell a story, whether it's existing conditions or our proposed design on existing conditions, or if it's even just trying to tell a what-if scenario. Really, a picture's worth more than 1,000 words, and a video even takes it even further there. Video or snapshots or models or bookmarks that you can create and share. So what I want to show you is how easy it is to be able to create InfraWorks models. And in this particular case, what I would like to focus here is the use of Model Builder. And as I use Model Builder here, we'll start looking at our ability to bring in data. And this is where I can add in a location. And in this particular case, you can choose anywhere here. I can do my backyard, Cary, North Carolina. I can go here to Orlando, Florida. And I can start pulling data from my sites here. Or in this particular case, I did choose Jacksonville, Florida. And the data that's going to be pulled, it's going to be from what we see here on the screen. Now, we are limited, as far as the models that we create, to 200 square kilometers. So we can go in through here and start zooming in and out until we get that particular chop view that we need to, or we are able to create rectangular areas, or we're even able to create polygonal areas, because we can go down a particular interstate or highway or route and not have to be a big box of data, but we can sliver it down and get into a much larger or longer piece of terrain being created for us. But we are limited initially to create a 200 square kilometer model. And I think I created mine was like 80 or 90 square kilometers inside of here. We are pulling data for roadways, which happens to do also trails or railway, buildings, imagery from Bing Maps, and elevation from the USGS web. Now, these elements are coming free and it's coming from the OpenStreetMap. If you do a web search for this, you can go out and take a look for OpenStreetMap, and you're able to take a peek at how that looks like and pull data from this particular website. That's exactly where it's coming from in this case. Once we create a model, we just put a name, and it pings the InfraWorks service, the cloud service, to create this model from us. We hit save, we downloaded it, and you'll get an email saying that your model is ready to be downloaded. And you can work off the cloud, or in my case, I'm working all locally. It does take that model and bring it here locally. So let me go ahead and just cancel out of here. You can see how some of my models are set to the cloud and some of my models are set locally on the cloud, where I can share the information with other people on my team, or just locally so I can play with it here. I'm just going to open this Florida model. And as I open this particular example, I'll show you where that data comes from and how it's displayed inside of the software and what options you have inside of here as it opens it up. And I think the Florida DOT office, if I grabbed it correctly, it's around here somewhere. I think that may be your actual office building. So looking at our model, I happen to have included it on screen there for us. So it's right at the tail edge of my model that I brought in, not centered around it. So that's your FDOT Jacksonville office, if I got the address correct.
Yeah, that looks about right, Leo. That looks generally it. Yep.
I find that the software is really easy to use. To me, one of the toughest parts is navigating and selections. Navigating only because I'm so used to AutoCAD, and what left picking does for me here in this case is panning, and right clicking is orbiting. So to me, just because I've been using AutoCAD for such a long time, I've been using AutoCAD since release 12 of it. That's R12, not 2012. And I think navigating is just a little bit odd for me. And selecting your objects is also going to be play a huge part on what information you get as a feedback, especially when we start designing, and I'll show that here in a minute. But what I wanted to talk about is the data that it brought in here. And initially, if I use the big letter I here, this orange icon is the basics of InfraWorks. And what I would like to do is show off the sample information that came in here. And this is all the free data that came in with that model builder. It brought buildings. It brought some coverage areas. It brought, of course, the ground imaging in the background. It brought railways, roads, terrain, and of course, these water areas that you see there. Of course, it was all free. If I want to be something that's more up to date, more specific, a little bit more current, I can start looking at supplementing this information that I have here on the screen. And historically, what has happened is this little drop down has become bigger and bigger throughout the year releases. I do have options of bringing in AutoCAD geometry. I do have options of bringing in information, for example, from Revit, 3D geometry from other software, so through IMX, and many other options through this list here. I do enjoy the use of being able to bring in point cloud data, and through the software itself, there's really amazing tools to process point cloud data and create and extract terrain and clean up terrain even inside of the InfraWorks software. Bringing in raster, bringing in more up-to-date aerial imagery, or shape, dealing with that Esri extension .shp. So there are point files that I can go out there and grab. A lot of times also working with SketchUp, I have a lot of people who are able to create amazing models in SketchUp and almost complete models, very realistic models, and add them into my story here inside of InfraWorks. Now, I am also able to tap into databases, and this has been inside here for quite a while. One of the things is I already had the use of Bing Maps in the background. You can see that there. Notice Google is not an option. It's going to be driven by Bing. But new or newer to this last release is the fact that I'm able to tie to Esri ArcGIS databases. And I haven't set mine up quite yet, but it is going to be via user login and password. And again, going back to the fact that whether you're tied into Autodesk 360 or not, which goes back to this particular piece of software is user-based or user license. So you're going to have to work with and create an Autodesk 360 account for this particular piece of software to work for you. The license is given to you as your personal Autodesk 360 login, and I usually recommend my clients to create that login via your work email, so whoever is managing your licenses can then give you the appropriate privilege. Otherwise, if you get InfraWorks installed on your side, the software is only going to allow you to view a model, and that is if you have access to be able to hit the actual SQLite database, because that's what we're creating inside of here. The fact that we allow it to work with 200 square kilometers has to do with InfraWorks is creating a SQLite file, and that SQLite file, of course, has its database working in the background for you. So we're not working like AutoCAD or Civil 3D, where it's a singular point file. We're quite literally working with a database inside of here, and this database is what really drives the model that we see on screen. So let's talk about what we can do inside of InfraWorks and the type of models that we can work with. Really building this demonstration around the key highlights of the software, really road-centric as well, as far as working with Civil 3D here to be able to do a little bit of work. Now, talking about being able to do work, it's in this particular case, the particular location I downloaded is quite robust, quite already populated here, so it's going to be tough to put a brand new road and put some brand new buildings, so we'll see what we're able to do. But the first thing I want to share with you is the fact that the model that we get downloaded, please note that it's referred to as master. And my recommendation is if you're ever dealing with InfraWorks and downloading models, go ahead and create your own what's called a proposal. It's almost like switching layout tabs inside of AutoCAD. You're all pulling from the same data, but I'm creating what's called a separate proposal here. And I'm just going to call it proposal 1. Which of the proposals can have maybe some alternates that you want to work with, but for me, at least initially, I don't mess with what is originally downloaded, just in case I end up erasing it or moving it or changing it from what was originally downloaded. I can always go back to it. So from here, my proposal, I can start working with what I have, and all I have is really basic data inside of my screen here. I can look at, there's not a lot of intelligence as far as design goes, especially for my roadways here. It's just a road with several vertices on it. It has, it looks like a polyline that was dressed up a certain way, and buildings work in the same fashion inside of here. So what I would like to talk about here is when we're looking at what I refer to as almost like drafted or basic elements, they look in this way. They're almost like just regular AutoCAD geometry. They get stylized. And in this particular case here, I'm going to dwell on roads, and here is bridges as well, because the basic elements don't give us the design tools that we need. We're using these orange box over here, and the orange box over here, what I would like to do is focus on the fact that we're able to use what's called the style palette. And for example, here for the style palette, I'm going to go down here to roadway and show you how I'm able to, within the software, simply drag and drop a style that controls what we see here on the screen. Please note that this particular road has what looks like bollards on each side. It's 4 lanes, and I'm able to bring in here just a simple cobblestone. This is going to be crazy here. I'm just going to drag and drop this, and my road completely changes for me. In this particular case, a basic road is not really using a template or a typical cross section. What it's using is a pretty picture. In this case, a pretty picture is a style. Notice if I want to go back here, I can drag and drop the needed style that I need to. And this helps me tell stories at a basic level. Now, this is what downloaded from the website here. So as I select it, it does have a little bit of intelligence built behind it. Depending on where it pulled it from, it can tell you perhaps how many lanes it did have or the name of the original road. In this particular case, this is Talleyrand Avenue. So it does have a little bit of intelligence built behind it. But the look of it, at least for the basic portions inside of here, if I right click for this guy here and edit it, what I want to show you is what styles can do for you. I'm basically calling almost like an Excel lookalike viewer here the size of my roads. It's not a template itself. I'm really dictating in a tabular fashion what this particular roadway is supposed to look like. Have it be the decorations or the sidewalk or the road widths. That's all called out within a style, and there's a lot of them that come out of the box here, and they can be quite easily edited or copied and made to be your own. And this is for a simple roadway, which is referred to as a basic roadway. I call them little dummy sketches. Please note one of the things that you're going to see inside of here is how intersections are not referred to as intersections. They clean up really nicely though. This all came from that GIS data that was free, that was a free download. And you can create these basic sketches for buildings and roads. As far as buildings goes inside of here as well, they get stylized. I'm going to go through here and I can add a style for my buildings here and simply drag and drop them on them and change how that particular facade looks inside of here. I can say brick and change how this particular building looks like just by dragging and dropping a particular style on it. It's not a real building, it's a box. It's a box that I put a style on it. We'll talk about these two features in a little bit more. Let's talk about roadway inside of here. And what I would like to talk about here is an example of a bridge that gets created. And the reason why I want to focus on this bridge is because it's not a bridge. It's stylized as such. And it is a drafted or a basic bridge. Please note, I'm not going to get really options to start looking at messing with the piers or messing with the deck or the girders. It's not. It's a pretty style. It's painted a certain way. What I would like to drive is within the software, how it's stepping from just painting a pretty picture. Because of the utilities that have been added inside of here, I do have options to explore my roadway module, my bridge module, and I also have a utility module, those other dots up here. And what I would like to do is try to use this roadway model here just to show off a brand new road being created inside of here and seeing how we can tap into and cross add another bridge to Jacksonville. I mean, pretty much to get anywhere in Jacksonville, you have to cross 3 bridges or 4 bridges. It doesn't matter where you're going, you have to cross at least 1 bridge to get anywhere in Jacksonville. So let's go ahead and add another roadway here and another bridge into Jacksonville. So I'm going to add a road here. I have some options for components here on the right-hand side. It might be a little bit tough to look at them. Let me see if I can bring in the waterway there. And you'll be able to see how I have several tools that get engaged inside of here. Unlike most Autodesk products, I don't have a ribbon inside of here. This modeling piece of software is not based upon that ribbon idea that we have been so used to inside of my most of my Autodesk products. In my case, what I'm going to go ahead and create here is what's called a component road. A component because we're going to be able to speak to each individual component of my roadway model. It's not just a center line with a pretty style on it. It will be aware of a lane, a curb and gutter, and sidewalk. There is an assembly, or as we get to know them as templates down our design. And that just gives me some options to select my option to be PVI base, element base, to select the assembly that I'm using inside of here. A little bit different. Instead of working with my roadway tab inside of here, I'm really dealing with my component collection and looking at assemblies. Quite a bit different than what I've been doing in the past. If you had ever seen InfraWorks before, quite a bit different than these basic roads. So what I'm going to do here is just choose something simple, 4-lane divided slope with grade, and I'm going to go in here and I'll tie into this basic roadway here, and I'm going to come out. And as I come out, it does give me a design speed, a curve radius, and a spiral length inside of here. I can run design here that's intelligent. I'm running design. It's not just a sketch line. And as I'm putting this line on here on the screen, let's go ahead and cross on over and come on here and just come on out and pop a new location here and tap on this road. It lays down a road for me. And it's adding that information and modeling it for me as well. Looking at the design here, I have design criteria running on this particular roadway, giving me some awesome looking little stations across my site as well here. Showing me for this particular design roadway, I have a grading limit and my cuts for it. Because it is a component road, not only am I able to see the whole road at once inside of here, and this is one of those tricky parts that InfraWorks really is notorious for, is the way you select objects. Please note, selecting the center line gives me information for that material there. My roadways, my curb and gutters even. So this component road, unlike my basic roads over here, don't get any stationing. They're not driven by intelligence. Now I can control everything I see inside of the model. Really what I'm doing here is modeling. Matter of fact, the model that I downloaded here, this area, let me see if I can zoom out enough, give you a view. There is Earth. There is Jacksonville, Florida. That's where we're doing work in. It understands models. It understands design because of the design criteria that's behind InfraWorks. It's not just a line, but as far as ultimately when I start creating pictures, renderings, or videos of this, it understands elements such as the time of day or the position of our planet around the sun for the particular day of the year. Wind direction, wind speed, or even cloud coverage. In this particular case, I'm way out here. Let me see if I can go back to my bookmark for my site. And I was looking at this little road that I sketched in here. All right, guys. So let's continue with my presentation here. Notice what it does. It tries to blend this road onto the terrain it senses in the background, and it does that. So it moses through your river, stream. And at times I have seen it be intuitive enough to add in a bridge, but there are bridge functions inside of here. Now, I'm not going to just stylize this as a bridge. I'm going to truly let the software add a bridge component inside of here. And this is what's going to happen here. As a heads up, bridges, you can't just start a bridge. There needs to be an intelligent road to then make a bridge. You can't just make bridges by themselves. So I'm going to go here and use this option to create a bridge. I have a couple options inside of here, and let me see if I can put something better of a background over there. There's a precast girder, and there's a steel plated bridges, and we can also create tunnels. So inside of here, there has been a lot of updating for these as far as the parametric parts that I can build and import. I can use other software such as in this particular case, Inventor has been added in. So I can tap into those types of objects that I can bring in to give the appropriate treatments to my bridges and make them be more realistic. But I'm just going to use what's out of the box here. I'm just going to use this precast girder bridge here, and it's going to say, hey, where do you want this bridge? Now, unlike AutoCAD, I'm not working with a command line, so it's a lot more free-flowing. It's a lot more what you have selected on the screen. And as far as the latest releases, it has been a little bit better at here at the bottom center, almost command line-like. It gives me a little bit of information. As I'm trying to add a bridge inside of here, say, hey, select where you want to start this bridge. So I'm going to say, I would like to pop it over here somewhere, and let's span it across this way and place it on my opposite end here. And I think I actually ended up picking a location instead of panning. So it's going through and creating a bridge. It's adding all the components for my particular precast girder bridge here. And in this case as well is adding all the design that goes along with this particular bridge. And in this particular case, what I like that's going to go ahead and add here are all my piers. All components that are real. It's not just a pretty style that I'm going to end up with here. Not something that's just at initially, yes, at an iteration, but it can be modeled and edited instead of just having it be a pretty picture that's simply a style. I now have power to make changes to my design elements as long as I create design elements themselves. Now, depends on, well, in my case, I'm not sure if there was an automatic update or save from AutoCAD happening in the background. There are options to controlling what I'm seeing and how I'm seeing things on the screen, and I can have it be more or less detailed on screen, and that's also going to drive how my particular computer operates inside of here. I know I typically have a bit more performance issues when I'm doing a live demonstration like this, and for some reason the GoToMeeting or Go webcast makes my machine just a little bit slower, or a little bit hinders a little bit of my performance from when I practice my demonstration or presentation until when I do it. But what I wanted to show off here is looking at what I have. I do have the ability of changing elements. You'll see things like shadow shadows being casted from my buildings, or how my water over here is moving. In this particular case, it looks like my bridge is going underneath the ground there, so I think that's what was causing to get a hiccup there. But I do have abilities of controlling my views. In this particular case, it does ship with two, a conceptual or an engineering view. And you can see how the engineering view dims things down. Look at my conceptual view, it's a lot brighter. My water is actually moving. My water is actually showing reflections. And my engineering view, it dulls everything out. My water just looks like a color there. Notice as well as when I switched on over from one view to the next, now I have contours being displayed. These are all settings from within your InfraWorks, and very similar to what AutoCAD does with views and its 3D views. There are options to control this inside of here where you can show how the lighting works, whether you get shading or shadows inside of here, the way that the sky is being animated. Notice how I lost my sky now, it's all gray in the background. So there are some visualization options that you can enable and disable. Notice how in this particular view, I have enabled contours. So if I switch this on over from being an engineering view to a more detailed conceptual view, you'll notice how I get the sky turned back on, my clouds are moving, my water over here is kind of shimmering here for me as well. These are all pieces that I can control from within the software. Let's take a look at this bridge that is going underneath the water here, and let's try to look at the vertical portion of it, the profile. And this is one of those design pieces that InfraWorks have been made to use now. It's not just a what-if scenario. It is an intelligent design tool. And I can look at, for example, here my profile view, and I can take a look at this road and how we're going basically into the water there. So I can start looking at, well, I want to go ahead and elevate this perhaps just a little bit, and I can add or remove PIs here. And let's see here on my other side, if I start this a little bit above the water, and I can give myself now a real bridge instead of what looks like almost a tunnel. So as I bring that profile up, you'll see how it models that information. Now, it also depends how detailed the information is in the background, or how high quality of an image that you have. The higher quality of an image, the longer it's going to take to process that. Or again, the option for how I set my conceptual views to work for me inside of here. And it looks like I didn't actually push this bridge all the way to the end. And notice how it's very grip edit oriented. I can take this grip and just bring it down to the edge here, and have then extended my bridge itself. Now, more than just a pretty picture, more than just a pretty picture for my roadway, more than just a pretty picture for my bridge itself, I actually have design components working out here for me. And as that updates, I would like to talk a little bit about the bridge and what we're able to do with the bridge components. As I look at my bridge here, I do have what are my piers. And I can't see it right now because I'm locked above grade, but let me take a quick peek at what this would look like if I choose to go underneath my surface. Let's see here, I do believe I am locked above grade, and let's unlock that. And what you'll be able to see is how I'm able to run underneath the surface, and there are my piers. So as I'm looking at later to be able to do a count of what this particular bridge is going to cost, or this particular road is going to cross, it's aware of all of these little design elements. In this particular case, you can see how they're buried underneath our water level. I can choose to have my mouse, particularly in this case, locked above ground. Looking at my bridge component itself, I have very specific individual elements that I can work with inside of here. Have it be the roadway portion itself and modify it. Have it be the pier itself and modify it. As I'm perhaps sometimes putting a bridge through a road, that pier ends up being right smack in the middle of my roadway. I can take it and delete it and reduce that count. Now, a boat or a car is no longer running in through it. Or I do have the options of looking at these particular individual components and start modifying and talking to them. And I can see what options I have here from my what looks like it's called an asset card. It looks like the AutoCAD properties tool palette, and I have options of how to play with all the values that come out of the box here for myself. Or in this particular case, just simply on screen, use the grip edits to rotate it and have that particular pier be more in line with any existing features or proposed features on screen here. Looking at the bridge element itself, I do have a lot inside of here. it recognizes all my individual elements here. And this is my girder and the grouping for it. And I have several of them listed inside of here. I have the method that they've been designed and all the goodies behind there. Now, I also have the ability of controlling my bridge a little bit better. I don't have really a bridge. I didn't use a correct typical cross section through here, but I do have the options to start looking at my component here. And come on, give me the option. Can start turning off the road, the deck, and start looking at individual components for myself here. And this was by a method of select right click. I'm able to see this information. As I select my items, I get on-screen annotations. And as I select my items, my asset card over here on the right-hand side gives me information which allows me to just get live feedback or modify that particular design. Intelligent design inside of the screen here for me. Intelligent design that I'm going to keep on moving here, and I would like to talk a little bit more about the roadways that I have going on and whether I wanted to go through here and do a little bit more with these roads. These are just basic roads inside of here, as you can see, not a lot of intelligence. Specifically, what I would like to see is how these intersections are not recognized as intersections. They're just two roads that happen to touch and or cross each other. But if I chose to do this inside of here, let's take a look at, take this and I'm just going to straight up delete it. What I would like to do is just run one road, a new road here, just crossing from edge to edge here. And I'm going to be mowing down these homes or this property. But I really want to talk about the use of the software here. And I'm just going to add another component road from point to point, something very simple inside of here. And as that finishes, tying into those existing roads is not going to give me something really intelligent, not an intersection per se, but if two intelligent roads happen to intersect, I will get what is referred to as an intersection. And as that finishes it off, oh, come on, hit enter. I do have the possibility of having the software clean itself up nicely, but what I would like to do is talk about the intersection that it actually gets created for me when two intelligent design roads cross, where I can choose a type of intersection, or as the software calls it, a junction. I'm not sure how popular it is down in your area to create roundabouts. I used to work for the town of Cary here in Cary, North Carolina. And right as I left the town and municipality, these traffic calming devices were very popular. More than likely, you guys are working with just simple intersections, just four-way, three-way intersections inside of here. And let's see if I can go back and change you. No, not the arm. I want to look at the entire intersection, please. And switch it on over. As I'm running my design changes, it is pulling design standards for my roadway. I gave it a speed limit. It understood how to create my radiuses. It understood how to create it horizontally and vertically inside of here. As I look at this particular roadway, I'm telling it, well, this particular intersection is being designed for a car. Vehicle types inside of here. Let's put a tractor trailer to here, WB19. And make sure that this particular intersection can handle that type of vehicle going through it. Now, within Civil 3D, within InfraWorks, what I get is the ability of talking to these objects. Please note, as I select my objects and pick on my entities again, I get further selections. I can select my road, or I can start selecting the subcomponents within it. I'm not holding Control, I'm not holding Alt. That second pick on an element is really what drives a change inside of here. I'm not double picking, I'm selecting once, then selecting a second time, which has to do a lot with the way you work from within the software. Let me bring this back to a smaller intersection here. And we can start talking about the design elements that we get on screen here. So this is our intersection itself here. I can choose to back this yield off and make it stop before. Looking at my lanes inside of here, whether I want to have a turn lane or a through lane. And again, if I pick on it, I get a little asset card. And on the left-hand side, what I want is a through and through. And we can go to my opposite side here. What I really want here is a through and through to try to control traffic. Or I can look at more specific functionalities inside of here. Looking at my pieces of pavement, what I have the option is to replace this particular lane, which is a component, or split that component, or delete a component inside of here. I have options of also inserting So let's say I wanted to add in an extra turn lane inside of here, just to go left, through, and right. So I can go here and insert a road component. And what I would like to do is just add a generic lane inside of here. Let's look for it. No, just give me a lane. There it is, a lane component. And I would like to have it added right through here. And I did arbitrarily just pick on the screen here anywhere I wanted to. And I can go back and using the stationing that's on the screen, give it a more specific station or begin or end inside of here. But you can see how I'm going to take it all the way here, just grip edit it to right to the intersection. And I'm blending out the fact that I'm actually having a beginning and end right at the edge of that intersection there. And once it's said and done, I now have a turn lane. And the software senses this information. And please note, I'm not sure if you've noticed this, it immediately sensed that that lane that I added is going to be a turn lane, creating a singular through and a singular left. So it was intuitive enough to do that. Of course, I have the ability of going through and making changes to this particular intersection, how it's behaving or what it's doing here for me. That selecting once and selecting twice has a lot to do with what I end up working from within the software. This intelligent design is not just about stylizing a portion of the line inside of here, but what I have is the ability to add additional functions, additional sections, or additional views inside of here. I'm going to take my roadway inside of here and have the option of changing my design. And what I would like to do here is start looking at showing a particular cross-section as it's working there. Very similar to Civil 3D, it's showing me that active at that particular station value there. Let's look at it at 7,200 and see what that particular cross-section looks like there for me. Now, very civil-like. Let's add something else inside of here. Let's go here and say I would like to change my road assembly and I would like to replace my assembly. Let's add something else inside of here. Let's add something, and I'm just using all that's out of the box. Let's use something with a median. Do you have something with a median? 4 components median with grass. Divided median with grass. Yeah, let's use that divided median with grass. And I can tell it where I want to begin and where I want to end. I think I double picked in that little area. So I chose to add in this particular area a completely different typical cross section. I hope this ends up working out for me there. So I do have a completely different typical cross section. This used to be all controlled via Autodesk, the styles that we have here, but now they're referred to as components, because this in turn, when I take this information and push it onto Civil 3D, will allow me to help me. Yes, I can easily pull this alignment and profile and have an alignment and profile inside of Civil, but going one step further and creating assemblies and corridors inside of the Civil 3D software. So that's just really quickly layout of roadway geometry and how I can stylize that roadway geometry. One of the other things I'm going to briefly talk about here is the fact that I can take this geometry and add utilities to it. And I do enjoy the fact that I'm able to take a road and start looking at my options of size of drainage network on it. And what it does, it looks at that roadway that you let on there, and you can let the software look at a minimum cover, a drop across a structure, a material that you're using, give it a little bit of information for what you would like to add into a particular network, and have it try to size a, first I need to add one. Let's see here, there should be an option to create a network for myself. No, I don't want to lay something down, I want the software to do it for me. I can add my own catch basins, my own pipes, my own structures. What I'm looking for here is the ability to take a look at a network, analyze my particular stretch of road, and add utilities by itself. They may have moved it on me. There is an option to let the software create a design by itself. Picking and clicking to add my own designs is easy enough by just beginning a creation of a drainage network. I can tell it the type of particular box or structure that I want, tell the particular manhole that I would like to use along with the inlets and the pipe size that I want, and I can simply go through and add my own pipes through here, and it should be as easy as that. Now, as it designs that network on here for me, I should also be able to, if I see it in 3D, it should give me the little boxes on there. There's my box. It's in the middle of the road in this particular case, Leo. And I'm able to take it and relocate it and move it around my particular site. And it is creating true 3D parametric parts. So if I start looking at some of my options to see my design inside of here, let me see if I can go here into an engineering view. It should show me the part underneath my surface. As I change my view, it gave me a transparency to my terrain so I can see the information behind it. All right, and change my view back to conceptual. All right. A little tiny bit on site and what we're able to do as far as supplementing not only what we see here, but adding a little bit more life to what we have as far as redoing a little bit of work here for a particular parcel or site. I like the options that we have here to start just adding in either coverage areas or what are called land areas. And if I add in a coverage inside of here, let's see here, or land, is it land area or coverage? Let me add a asphalt. And I'm just going to add black asphalt inside of here and just going to cover this entire site with, no, let's cover it with a little bit of grass here. And there's my site. And I'm just doing something really quick inside of here, again, with the idea of telling a story or adding in a sketch of what we propose to do in a certain area. There's my land area. And to this land area, I can continue adding other pieces inside of here. Let me go here and now I can add a little bit of asphalt. Maybe some sort of driveway access here. And I'm just eyeballing information. If I had this already sketched in and drawn in from AutoCAD, this is all information that I can bring on over. There's a very particular process to bring that information on over, have that line work created for me. And I can bring that information hopefully on over to where I could work with it. And what happened to my asphalt? I think I just lost it. Can I go down? I should be able to work from the inside out. Not sure what happened with my particular asphalted area there. I may have not hit enter to finish it off and cancel it out before I accepted it. That's all right. What I want to do is bring in buildings inside of here. And what I wanted to talk about is what the software has out of the box to try to tell a story inside of here. Most of the buildings that you see here are just rectangles with an elevation on it and a style that has been applied to it. Now I can create those myself, yes. I can go over here and start looking at designing a building here, and based upon whatever style I select, whatever shape I give my object, I can create this building mass that has a style on it. What I can also do inside of here is the software does ship with many predefined parts and elements. You can go here and start looking at this office building. It looks like a post office and pop it right in place there. And what I'm also able to do is start telling a better story by adding more realistic elements. Whether you've created them in other pieces of software, or one of the places I like to hit up the most is looking at the 3D warehouse. Now, I can't guarantee the accuracy of any of this data here. I'm going to go here. I think there is the Jacksonville, Florida, USA, and start looking at buildings that might be in your particular city or community. I could look at generic objects. Let's see here, parking. And these are models that have been shared by people that have been put up here to the 3D warehouse. And you can start downloading these models to try to tell a better story. Now, I've downloaded several of them throughout the years. I actually have a whole repository of models. But what I want to show is how I can start looking at building up these other 3D elements from within the software as options as that I can download. And what I want to show off here is bringing up information from, for example, Sketchup. A lot of people know how to use that particular piece of software, and they learned it when it first came out, and they're really good at it. There's other options such as Revit from the Autodesk platform. If that building was created from an architect or internally, you have the ability to bring in that intelligent 3D model right on over into Civil 3D, excuse me, into InfraWorks, and or 3D models. There's other applications that create 3D models that I can bring in to InfraWorks. And what I want to show off here is it depends on what your source might be. Whether it's 3D, whether it's an Autodesk product or not, one of the most basic ways I figure out whether I can bring it into InfraWorks or not is browsing through it in Windows Explorer and just dragging it into my session. Whether it takes it in or not, it's going to be a great part of how it ends up working out here. This particular restaurant is a building, and it's not going to show up correctly because it's actually tied to Illinois here. So a model can have an intelligent background and 3D information inside of here. Let me see if I can go to something else that's a little bit more generic. Buildings, let me go up. A parking deck as an example. I can just drag and drop. This is a Sketchup file. And I can bring it into my drawing here. And one of the things I wanted to talk about is how InfraWorks works is that a lot of times I'm adding data, but it doesn't understand the data that I add in, because I can bring in, for example, shape files, and a shape file could be representative of a pipe, or it could be representative of a parcel, of a road, or of a street, or of an area. And what I'm trying to show off here is when I connect to data, I typically have to tell it what it is. Not only connect to it, as you can see here, it's connected, but it's not configured. In this particular case, this is a parking deck, and I'm going to add it in as a building. And it's not tied to grid here, so I can tell it where I want this particular parking deck at. So from Sketchup, I could bring this information in. Again, I can't guarantee how it's going to look like, especially from the 3D warehouses where I pull this guy in from. Now, sometimes models themselves are kind of squirrely in the way that were created or the way that InfraWorks interprets it. I know I've been able to play with the invert orientation or invert transparencies, and my buildings can look better. Okay, we're at the mercy of what somebody else did on another piece of software. Or again, working with SketchUp or any of the other of these modeling files. Let's see here. I do have. Let me go up here. Let me go up one more. I think two. Format being another Autodesk application. I created what's called an FBX. That is the 3D model, and I can drag and drop it inside of here. And once again, when you're bringing information into InfraWorks, InfraWorks can take a lot of different information from different sources, but you need to tell it what it's really supposed to be representative of. In this case, this is a building again, and I will place it interactively here on my screen. And it does the best it can to bring in materials. Notice how this particular Autodesk application, as it sped out that FBX file, did bring in materials for me, where this is a SketchUp file, didn't bring in the materials as they should have. So I'm at the mercy of what is able to come on over, and whether or not I have those source files. A lot of times it's a matter of taking their images and their materials and placing them inside of the same folder that this particular file sits at, and then boom, images and materials come right on over. So I have the ability of bringing in 3D models representative of typically buildings inside of InfraWorks to help me tell a better story of buildings that already exist in the area, or buildings that we're proposing to put on a particular site. From all this information, I am also able to run a little bit of volumes or a little bit of data from what I have here on the screen. And looking at particular roadway, it's just as easy to pick on a roadway here. And there's the option to look at my materials, the calculating materials for a particular design through here, and what that would take. Can generate a report from this, something that's tangible, something I can pick on. I can also look at that for a roadway specifically, the cut and fill for that particular road there. And for any other areas, I should be able to as well just highlight with boxes what I want to get information from. I should be able to just go through here and run terrain statistics as an example, and just pop a little box here. And from within this particular area, I get a little stats of what's going on there. Now, depending on the information that I bring in, I didn't really bring anything from GIS. All I have is this terrain. And based upon the information that I bring in, I'm able to go through and either stylize it or theme it. And I'm just going to theme or stylize my terrain because that's really the only thing I have here. And I'm just going to give it depth, palette, elevation, or do I have a land coverage? And I know it's Florida, it's pretty darn flat. But depending on the information that I bring in this case, this is terrain, I'm able to stylize it or theme it. But if I was looking at other information, for example, parcels, I can theme by land value, or I can stylize and theme by who owns it, or what is it zoned, or looking at piping, the age or material, or who owns a particular element. Again, it depends on the data that's in the background. I didn't have any intelligent GIS data for this particular model in Jacksonville to show off, but that's what I'm able to do here. I'm going to take this theme and turn it off. It's a stylization, really. Last part inside of here is creating a snapshot of what I have. You can basically just run a print screen, but if I go inside of here, my little, what looks like a little monitor, I can create what's referred to as a snapshot, and it's going to create a simple little picture of what you see inside of here. It's going to be clean, so you're not going to see the buttons on there, and that's all you're going to see as far as what's on there. So if I try to show that off, I think it puts it under my documents, and it just creates a snapshot. Now that's pretty easy, might as well be a print screen there. What I can also do is what I enjoy a lot is creating animations. And working from AutoCAD to having now worked inside of InfraWorks, they're called storyboards. And what I do inside of InfraWorks is create snapshots, just kind of position my camera, or my view in this case, and pop a view. It's referred to as a keyframe. And then I go through and I'm just going to do this really quickly and dirty inside of here and get another view and choose to pop another keyframe and choose to zoom in or pan on out. And I can choose to drive down a road. That is an option. But in this particular case, I just want to show you how easy it is to create snapshots of our design through here. And I'm doing this again relatively quickly without too much of adjustment. And get a view of what this site is going to look like from within the software here. Basically 5 pictures inside of here. Now over the web, this might come off kind of choppy here, but I'm going to try to increase the time from one frame to the next to about 10 seconds. And on my side, it's going to be relatively slow, but I hope that through the speed of the internet and through lag, we're able to resolve that a little bit by increase how long it's taking from one frame to the next. All right. So if I cross my fingers here and I hit play, the top view up here will show you how it starts spinning around. And what it does, it looks at each individual snippet and stitches the images together. Now, this model I can share, this flyby I can share with the use of BIM 360. It allows me to share these models and using that cloud service, be able to then share a link to our clients or to our prospects here of what we're proposing to do on a particular site. And again, it was kind of dirty in what I did. I just grabbed a couple screenshots or clips and let the software stitch them together. There was no need to tell it a target, a path, create any other extra line work. It's just a matter of creating some snapshots and let the software piece them together. So that's the gist of what InfraWorks can do for us. It's an incredible modeling piece of software. I like what it's able to show off, either to tell a story in context or tell a story from scratch here. I'm not going to go through the last part here just because of time, but if I open up Civil 3D, and of course I'm dealing with 2019 in this particular case, I would be able to bring information directly from Civil or push information from InfraWorks out. If I had Civil data as far as looking at pulling that information in as a data source, I have the ability of bringing in Civil 3D objects, have it be surfaces, meshes, or read a Civil 3D drawing and bring in intelligent data such as pipes or pipe networks or corridors and surfaces and terrains. So I do have the option of bringing in Civil 3D data or AutoCAD data. Now there is an option to do an overlay, and overlay is basically an XREF. If you have actually line work geometry that represents a paved area or a site or elements, the only way I know how to do it as of right now is leveraging, and I would probably use SDF, and from your AutoCAD or map session, push out SDF elements and bring those SDF line work elements inside of InfraWorks for bringing up that line work. I can easily bring Civil 3D, but bringing in AutoCAD would be a workflow through SDF. Just wanted to let you know. Now, the idea there is if that Civil 3D element change, I can easily take that connection, and I know I don't have a civil connection right now, but I could easily right click on it and tell it to refresh it. So if a road change or a pipe change, that connection, or by that matter, any of these connections inside of here can be updated. And as I finish this one off here, going into AutoCAD, I do have the option of going into InfraWorks and tapping into a model. Now you need to be careful when you do this because it's going to want to bring in the entire model. Right now I think I have close to 100 square kilometers inside of here, and I don't have a drawing in the background to pull very specifically, but what I do have is the option to go out here and pull that Jacksonville model. And once I pull that Jacksonville model, what I have is the option to really focus on an area, not to bring every existing condition, not to bring every either existing centerline roadway or my proposed centerlines or my pads, but to focus on an area and bring it in. Otherwise, you're going to be sitting here spinning your wheels for quite a while if you're trying to bring in that max limit of 200 square kilometers, or you're dealing with 100, or even if you're dealing with a small city block, maybe that's going to be easy enough to bring in. But just be aware that I have a direct tie-in to InfraWorks and have that information be live on the screen. Also, if it changes, it'll be a dynamic tie to it. So if I am tinkering with that proposal, it will also show inside of Civil 3D that way. That's what InfraWorks is. It's a great modeling tool. It is not AutoCAD based. It's a great method or a place to bring in 3D geometry. I'm not creating, other than the road and the bridges, those are core functions of the software. I'm not creating a building from scratch inside of here. I'm bringing it in. So and what has to do with the architectural functionality of it, that's done in the architectural package, or the mechanical aspect of it, that's done in the mechanical package, bringing in that building, the piping for what is mechanical oriented. But inside of this InfraWorks package, I'm able to host a lot of that information and tell an incredible story. So with that in mind here, as our day comes up to an end here, leaving a little under 15 minutes for us to chat about here. It looks like there was a couple of questions and a couple of things that you guys wanted to chat about here. Mr. Randy or Mr. Mike, you want to start rallying these guys off, or
Yeah,
chatting about the questions?
Sure, Leo. I've got a couple of questions here. Two are from Chris Popovich. His first question is, can InfraWorks use Esri ArcGIS REST endpoints web services?
I believe it can now with that new functionality. I was looking at InfraWorks here. If I pull this model, we do have the option of using in this release, or for a few releases now, databases, whether it was Oracle or SQL, or you can see the WFS there. Doesn't show a WMS, but I do have that. And through this release of the software now, I do have the ability of attaching ArcGIS data. So I want to say yes, but I haven't tested it myself.
Okay, and his other question is, also, can it use ArcGIS file geodatabases instead of just shape files? I think you might have touched on that earlier.
Geodatabases, I think, again, they're moving towards that new connectivity over here. I used to bring in CDGMLs, and it's no longer supported. So geodatabases, I don't see as a file format listed here. And again, I haven't played too much with the brand new functionality that is to be able to tie to Esri data up here. So it should, I want to say it more than likely, if it's going to be available, it's going to be available from that new button up there.
Okay. Then I got a couple questions from Emmanuel. One is, can you create ditches in InfraWorks?
Can I create roadway ditches or just brand new ditches? What are we talking about here?
It's not specific. It just says create ditches.
Okay.
Roadway. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, you put roadway ditches just now.
Okay. It would be a matter of they can be done. It would be a matter of creating the needed. Let me go here and look at my. And you could probably create a ditch in this fashion as well. If I can create under my style palettes, and I would go through here and create under the component portion. I would look at the assembly and create a ditch portion inside of here, which would probably also include your link, just some type of generic link through here. And it is possible to create more. So I would work through it here. The problem I would think about it is very similar to how Civil 3D has a limitation with ditches. It's not going to allow you to design the ditch. It's going to be over at 2 to 1 for 5 feet, and then down 2 feet and up 2 feet, and that's what it's going to just consistently cut all the way through. So in some places you're going to be carrying water, and some places it's going to be pooling water. So you are going to be able to put a typical cross section that represents a ditch, but you're not going to be able to design it per se. That's where we have to go to Civil 3D to take it to that level as of right now.
Our last question is from Frederick. They want to know, are you able to bring in property parcel lines from InfraWorks to Civil 3D?
Yes. Now, one or two things are going to happen. It just depends on how they were defined within InfraWorks. In the past, we were able to create different types of data, and I don't have it listed here. Data sources, shape. Come on, it's not going to give me the option, is it? All right. So I do have options of newly added options, and now it's not going to have it here, of creating what are called coverage areas. And as of a couple years ago, excuse me, a couple releases ago, InfraWorks added in things like right-of-way and parcels. Now, if you read a model and I don't see it, I would try doing this. I can't remember the answer off the top of my head, but I would try one or two things. I would use the open InfraWorks model to try to bring in that parcel information. And if this doesn't work, because the InfraWorks model is a SQLite file, what I would use is map technology. There's map, the letter W, come on, and the word space. And this is the GIS portion of Civil 3D. It's basic AutoCAD, map, and then Civil. Civil is built upon this mapping technology. So if InfraWorks as a connection doesn't work, I could use basic AutoCAD map. And as an option, I have the ability to connecting to SQLite connections. And I can go out and browse out to that file. So that it has to do with how it was originally defined. If InfraWorks has it defined as a parcel, I believe it's going to come over. I haven't tested it yet. If it was defined as a coverage area, it might come on over. If it doesn't, I would use this, because I have used this in the past, because at times I end up putting things like I add my own light poles, or maybe I put my own little fire hydrants, and that, at least in earlier releases, Civil did not recognize. So I connected to it via this function, which is map base, and then I see it and I'm able to grab it and create and use it inside of my drawings. So I would explore both of these functions if you don't see it.
Okay, Frederick says thank you. It's a good question, and we have one more that came in here at the last minute. Can we draw interchanges with multiple layers of roadways overlapping?
It's tough, but I've seen it done. It is possible. The thing is, with those interchanges, they're going to want to sense one another, and they're going to start wanting to push and pull one another. So as of right now, I don't have a way of isolating roadways and saying you don't touch him and you don't touch that guy over there. Interchange 1 does not interact with interchange 2, and I can see this inside of at least the out of the box stuff. Let me see if I can start looking at what creates. When I download this free data, you'll see how these bridges inside of here end up collapsing and being on top of each other. So this free data, I'm going to go ahead and tell you, it's initially not pretty. I usually go through and clean it up myself. I have seen intersections being done, and I have played with the option of creating a bridge or an intersection that way. The only way that I've been able to do this in the past is with a lot of patience and or creating what are referred to as tunnels, and a bridge and a tunnel will not talk to each other. So one of my interchange parts is going to be a tunnel, and it just doesn't have a top portion to it. It doesn't have walls or top. So as of right now, they are going to want to push and pull each other until I figure out a better way. It requires the answer is yes, with a lot of patience.
Okay, that's a good question. All right, that's all the questions I have for you, Leo.
All right. It's an incredible piece of software. Every time I've worked with this particular software with my clients, it's typically been more on a one-on-one or more on live. Let's try to build this particular model in mind. We do offer this as a general class, and I'm not to knock the general class. You do walk away with a lot of information, but getting your hands on it and really trying to go for a particular goal is the best classes that I've done in the past. And with modeling, as you guys in the room who have done modeling, it's tough to say, hey, I'm done. Like watching Bob Ross, and he just steps back and say, hey, I'm done, because you can always continue to add a little bit to it, a little bit more to it, and you have to call it when it's done at some point, when you're able to tell that story and everybody else understands it. Thank you for your time. Hopefully this was instructive for you guys, and I look forward to, if I do another presentation for you, speaking to you guys again. My name is Leo, and I work with Advanced Solutions, doing this type of particular civil work. And thank you very much for your time, gentlemen. Have a great day.